Satreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavate Uttamaśloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki Krishnaya Vasudevaya Devaki Nandanaya Cha Nandagopakumaraya Govindaya Namo Namaha. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 5, Text number 11.
Is there a way we can just get all that stuff out of that TV? Is it built in?
No, but I mean, it'd be simple enough to get like
A block?
a Chromebook and leave it there. And they give us like less than $100 to see this hooked up.
Let's repeat. Kashrupniyat Tirtapado Abhidanat Satreshu Vaha Suribir Idyamanat Yakana Nadim Purushasya Yatho Bhavapradam Geharatim Chinnati Kastrupniya Tirtapado Abhidnat Satreshu Vaha Surabir Idyamana Yakkarnanadim Purushasya Yatho Bhava Pradam Geharatim Chinnati Kastrupniya Tirtapado Abhidana Satreshu Vaha Surabir Idyamana Yakkarnanadim Purushasya Yatho Bhavapradam Geharatim Chinnati Kastrupniya Tirtapado Abhidana Satreshu Vaha Surabir Idyamana Yakkarnanadim Purushasya Yatho Bhavapradam Geharatim Chinnati
Kastripnuyat Tirtapado Vidanat Satreshu Vasurabir Idyamanat Ya Krishna Nadim Purushasya Yatho Bhava Pradam Geharatim Chinnati
Kastripnuyat Tirtapado Abhidhanat Satreshu Vasurabir Idyamanat Yakkarnanadim Purushasya Yatho Bhava Pradam Geharatim Chinnati
Kastripnuyat Tirtapado Abhidhanat Satreshu Vasurabir Idyamanat Yakkarnanadim Purushasya Yatho Bhava Pradam Geharatim Chinnati
Kasrinuyatirta Pado Vidanat
Kasrinuyatirta Pado Vidanat
Satreshu Vasurabhir Idyamanat
Satreshu Vasurabhir Idyamanat
Karnanadim Purushasya Vyato
Karnanadim Purushasya Yato Bhava Param Yeharati Janati
Kastrinuyatirta Pado Vidanat
Kasrinuyatirta Pado Vidanat
Satreshu Vasurabhir Idyamanat
Satreshu Vasurabhir Idyamanat
Karnanadim Purushasya Yato
Yakarnanadim Purushasya Yato
Bhava Param Yeharutin Chinati
Bhava Param Yeharati Janati
Word meanings. Kaha.
Kaha.
Who is that man?
Who is that man?
Trupniyat.
Tripniyat
That cannot be satisfied.
that can be satisfied
Tirtha Padaha.
Tirthapada
Whose lotus feet are all the places of pilgrimage.
whose lotus feet are all the places of pilgrimage
Abhidanat.
Abhidanat
From the talks of
from the talks of
Satreshu.
Satreshu
The human society.
in human society
Vaha.
Baha
One who is.
one who is
Surabhi.
Surabhi
By great devotees.
by great devotees
Idyamana.
Idyamana
One who is worshipped.
who is worshipped
Yaha.
Yaha
Who.
who
Karnanadim.
Karanadim
In the holes of the ears.
in the holes of the ears
Purushasya.
Purushasya
Of a man.
of a man
Yataha.
Yata
Entering.
entering
Bhavapradam.
Bhava
That which awards birth and death.
that which awards birth and death
Geharatim.
Yeharatim
Family affection.
family affection
Chinnati.
Chinati
Is cut off.
is cut off
Translation by Sri Vishnu Prabhupada. Who in the human society can be satisfied without hearing sufficient talk of the Lord? Whose lotus feet are all sum total of all places of pilgrimage, and who is worshipped by great sages and devotees. Such topics can cut off one's bondage to family affection simply by entering the holes of one's ears. Please repeat. Who in the human society
who in human society
can be satisfied
can be satisfied
without hearing
without hearing
sufficient talk of the Lord,
sufficient talk of the Lord
whose lotus feet
whose lotus feet
are the sum total
are the sum total
of all places of pilgrimage,
of all places of pilgrimage
and who is worshipped by the great sages
and who is worshipped by the great sages
and devotees.
and devotees.
Such topics
Such topics
can cut off
can cut off
one's bondage to family affection
one's bondage to family affection
simply by
simply by
entering the holes
entering the holes
of one's ears.
of one's ears.
Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Krishna Katha is so powerful that simply by entering into the person's ears can at once give deliverance from the bondage of family affection. Family affection is an illusory manifestation of the external energy, and it is the only impetus for all the mundane activities. As long as there is mundane activity and the mind is absorbed in such engagement, one has to undergo the repetition of birth and death in the current material musings. People are most influenced by the mode of ignorance, and some are influenced by the passionate mode of material nature. And under the spell of these two modes, a living being is actuated by the material conception of life. Mundane qualities do not allow a living entity to understand its real position. The qualities of both ignorance and passion strongly bind one to the illusory bodily conception of self. The best among the fools who are thus deluded are those who engage in altruistic activities under the spell of the material mode of passion. Bhagavad Gita, which is direct Krishna Katha, gives humanity the elementary lesson that the body is perishable and that the consciousness which is spread throughout the body is imperishable. The conscious being, the imperishable self, is eternally existent and cannot be killed under any circumstances, even after dissolution of the body. Anyone who misunderstands his perishable body to be the self and who works for it in the name of sociology, politics, philanthropy, or altruism, nationalism, or internationalism, under the false plea of the bodily conception of life, is certainly a fool and does not know the implications of reality and unreality. Some of them are above the modes of ignorance and passion and are situated in the mode of goodness. But mundane goodness is always contaminated by tinges of ignorance and passion. Mundane goodness can enlighten one that the body and the self are different. Mundane goodness is concerned with the self and not the body. But due to the being contaminated, those of the mundane goodness cannot understand that the real nature of the self as a person. The impersonal conception of the self as distinct from the body keeps them in the mode of goodness within material nature. And unless they are attracted by Krishna Katha, they will never be liberated from the bondage of material existence. Krishna Katha is the only remedy for all people of this world, because it can situate one in the pure consciousness of the self and liberate one from the material bondage. Preach Krishna Katha all over the world as recommended by Lord Chaitanya is the greatest missionary activity, and all the sensible men and women of the world may join in this great movement started by Lord Chaitanya. Hari Om Tat Sat. Om Jnana-Timirandasya Jnananjana-Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Murti Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Vitapadakamanam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrijatam Sahagana Raghunathanvikam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Shri Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesh Gopika Kanta Radhakanta Namostute He Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivashad Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare Karoti Vachalam Pangum Nangayati Girim Yatkravatmaham Mande Shri Gurum Dhyataranam Vancha Kalpatarubhyach Kripa Sindhubhyach Patitanam Pavanebhyah Vaishnavebhyah Namo Namaha. Hare Krishna. So we are continuing to see the questions by Vidura to Sage Maitreya, and so he is asking some basic questions which was very well known to Vidura. He was already a very great advanced devotee of Krishna, but yet he is asking all these questions so that people in general can learn about the importance of becoming Krishna conscious, becoming a devotee of God. So here is touching upon very basic elements. He is almost covering the entire Krishna consciousness. It always talks about one's bodily consciousness, Geha, it was here, Geharatim, attachment to family activities, Bhava-pradam, or material consciousness. So he talks about those two important aspects, and Prabhupada elaborates the purport very nicely how this is the basis of the materialistic conception of life. So the basis of materialistic conception of life is first starts with Dehatma Buddhi. Dehatma Buddhi Kunape Kridatuke. So Dehatma Buddhi means, Deha means the body, and considering oneself to the body is the very basis of the materialistic existence. And this body, Kunape Tridatuke. Kunape means a bag. Tridatuke means three different elements. So according to Ayurveda, so this body is made up of three elements, namely Kapha, Vayu and Pitta. So there are three different elements. The body is a different combination of these three things. So it is further said in the Bhagavatam, in 10th canto, Swadik Kalatradishu Bhauma Ijadihi. So to consider the Aham Ameti, me and mine. So this is mine and the family is my extended mind consciousness. So that is the next step. To first have the materialistic conception of life is very basic. Animals also do have it. So they all know that the body is there and the body is me. So that is all they understand themselves to be. And then there's the extended consciousness of mine. So my family, my spouse and my children or my siblings. So that is the next extended consciousness. Sometimes it extends beyond the family, to the society, to the nation. So that's where the whole consciousness revolves for everybody. Prabhupada goes in great length explaining about that how this people, their whole materialistic conception of life actually is the fuel for their materialistic activities. So they want to eating, sleeping, mating, different things. It's basically the four materialistic activities, and all activities revolves around that. And the passion to do more activities is actually based on these two conceptions. I am the body, and my family is the extended consciousness, extended body. So these two things drives all the different material endeavors. So to accumulate more money, or to accumulate more power, for different purposes. So all those things are mainly the driving force is actually these two things: the materialistic conception and the family attachment. So these two different things. So and those who are in this conception are basically in the mode of passion and ignorance. So that is the two different modes which actually activates them. The mode of passion leads to attachment. The mode of ignorance leads to false identification of the body. So these two things are the basic conception. So these two modes strongly bind one to the illusory conception that me and mine, how I can extend this, how I can perpetuate, and how I can make myself more stable, or how I can influence others. And so these two things, and also different isms are also associated. So in order to, some people are well-to-do, some people are powerful, and some people are not so haves and don't haves. So they have compassion towards the don't haves, in the name of philanthropy. So they want to help them to extend their me and mine conception. Oh, you are a very poor person, so you should have these things. You should have a good family, so you should have something to thrive on in this material rat competition, rat race. So they help them in the name of philanthropy. And so there's other isms also, politics and different nationalism, altruism, internationalism. So there is a lot of different things. So this whole materialistic, the gamut of material activities is all around this four different things. So either self, for the case of self-aggrandizement, or it is for the extended self. And it hardly extends beyond that. So very few people go beyond this trap of Maya, which is this me and mine. And some people do think about beyond the human platform to animals. They think about there is something beyond that, so we should look into ethics and different things. So those things are very rare. Such people are very rare. So those are the people who really starts to think beyond themselves, beyond their isms and beyond their conceptions. They have some philosophical bent of mind. And so still they don't really reach the ultimate consciousness of Krishna consciousness. So that is what Vidura is asking here. So who would be a person who does not want to hear about Krishna? So that is very, very important. So such people should come to want to hear about Krishna. So anybody who is really having an inquisitive bent of mind, a philosophical bent of mind, should not stop until he comes to the point of reaching the shores of Bhagavad Gita. So where they touch upon, Krishna touches upon the very basic elements of Krishna consciousness. That you are not the body, and you are a spirit soul, and your so-called extended body is all false, and ultimately they're going to die. So you should look for something more permanent, something that is eternally beneficial to you. So that conception is only introduced in Bhagavad Gita. Until then, everybody is in different isms, or they are even in the philosophical thoughts, they are lost in different things. So eventually they will come back to the same platform. They may rise to the platform of goodness, but again there's a mundane goodness. So there is a whole two different layers of goodness. So there's a mundane goodness, and there is goodness, and there is pure goodness. So there is the mundane goodness, which is associated, tinged with passion and ignorance. Somebody may want to help others, so that's definitely a mode of goodness. You're going to help others, but you help others by giving them something to a cigarette to smoke, or helping them to forget their problems by giving them a bottle of wine. That's not really goodness. That's actually ignorance tinged with goodness. And also, some people might want to help them by building hospitals or education institutions. But again, there is some attachment for name and fame, that I did this, so I gave the money to do this. So that is again mode of passion and goodness combined. So that's all mundane goodness. So you have to rise above mundane goodness, then you come to the point of goodness, where they look for, they have some philosophical bent of mind. They want to understand who is behind all these things, who is God. And they want to be ethical towards everybody, and they have a conception of absolute good and bad. So what is absolute? So it's not my relative thinking, but what does the Vedas have to say? What does the literature, Vedic literature have to say? So they have philosophical bent of mind, and they try to come to the point of absolute rather than being relative. Oh, I think it's like this, I think it's like this, I think this is good, I think this is bad. So relative conceptions of truth. So you come to the platform of goodness, then you have come to the platform of absolute consciousness. You refer back to the absolute. Then those who continue on that path, then fortunately come in touch with a pure devotee of Krishna. So they are initiated into this process of pure goodness, and they rise above this goodness. So then they reach the point of, slowly to the point of Shuddha Sattva, or pure goodness. So that's how it should actually progress. And the key towards that is Krishna Katha. So that is very highly, it is described here. Kastrupniyat tirtha pado abhidhanat satreshu va surabir idyamana. So those who are surabhi, or those who are in the mode of goodness, so they are attachment towards these topics. And what does these topics do? They cut oneself from this lower modes of passion and ignorance. Can cut from the one's bondage to family affection and entering into the holes of one's ears. So the bondage towards body, bondage towards the family, that gets detached, cut off by coming in touch with the Krishna Katha. So Krishna Katha is a vehicle which can really take us from this lower modes to higher modes, whatever modes they are in. So even elevating the point of goodness requires a lot of effort. You have to identify passion and ignorance and avoid it. There's a lot of effort there. And to be situated in goodness is even very, very difficult. There's always a pressure to go to the lower modes. But if you ride on the vehicle of Krishna Katha, by letting your ears open to the Krishna Katha, then automatically that has the power, that has the drive to make you rise above the modes of goodness. And be at least to the modes of goodness, and then rise further above to the point of Shuddha Sattva. So mode of goodness is a Varnashrama system. So Varnashrama system is based upon mode of goodness. So identifying oneself, where are we situated? What is my combination of modes? And identifying according to the rules and regulation and duties according to the modes, the combination of modes that is controlling us. And then slowly executing the Varnashrama Dharma, and also rising up to the higher level by doing Krishna Katha. So Prabhupada made everything into one capsule. So he gave this Krishna Katha, he gave the Harinama Sankirtana. So which is the driving force which can rise up from wherever we are, from whatever background we are coming from, to the higher platform of consciousness, to the platform of goodness. And that's why he also highly spoke about the Varnashrama system, because that will help us to maintain the mode of goodness. If not for that, then we are going to very easily fall down to the lower modes. So we can easily fall trap to this gambling or meat eating or lower modes, activities concerning the lower modes. It's very difficult in mode of goodness. So Varnashrama system helps us to maintain the mode of goodness. And so that also Varnashrama system, so we also have this conception of marriage where you have this, the man and woman, so they come together and there is no illicit relationships like in animal platform. So there is a sanctified relationship and there is a codes of conduct in that relationship. So it becomes an ashram. It becomes a place where there is Krishna is also in the center. Prabhupada especially has given a lot of instructions on this matter. So marriage is a very good platform for people in general to execute their Varnashrama Dharma very nicely and also kind of purify their materialistic conception and materialistic attachment by engaging in Krishna consciousness, by dovetailing one's propensities in Krishna consciousness and go further in the platform of pure consciousness. That's very, very important. So one should have because marriage means one should support one's family and one should also having offsprings is also a part of the duties of a grihastha. That's very highly considered, emphasized in the Varnashrama Dharma. So other than Bhagavata Dharma, it is not that important to give so much importance to all these different conceptions, but we are not in that platform. So there are very few exceptions, even in the pure devotees, and who do not have offspring. So we have good examples like the Jayadev Goswami. So Jayadev Goswami is a very great devotee of Krishna, and Lord Jagannath inspired him to come to Puri, and also Lord Jagannath was instrumental in getting him to find a partner. So there's another wonderful devotee who was a very great devotee, and then she also got inspired to get married to Jayadev Goswami. So if it was divinely inspired, such great combinations are very, very rare. So otherwise one is required to go through the purificatory process of the different samskaras. We have to do that. And definitely having offsprings is very, very important because they inspire us in devotional service. So if we properly guide them and they inspire us as we get little, so as time goes by, our Krishna consciousness also becomes a little hazy and dull. So when we see the young generation take over and then they do Krishna consciousness, it inspires quite a bit in our own Krishna consciousness. And then also it's materially it's a very suitable thing because in the old age they can help you in material and also spiritual ways. There should be somebody to help you in your old age, and so that they can give you pinda, so that once somebody dies, then they can be elevated further, even if we had any material issues like sinful activities, we are caught in different situations. And also that's why the putra means one who putu trayate iti putra, the one who delivers somebody from the hellish region called putu is called a putra, or a son or a daughter, doesn't matter. By doing Krishna consciousness, definitely all those things can be avoided. If you don't want to have an offspring, that means you have to be extremely Krishna conscious. And you should have the blessings of one spiritual master to do that. So otherwise marriage means it is understood that we go towards takes the responsibilities of Grihastha and execute the duties of Grihastha properly. And then you follow the instruction of spiritual master, be charitable towards the other ashrams like the brahmachari and sannyasa ashram. So you have to be charitable to them because they are all dependent upon grihasthas. So all these things are very important to follow, so they're not to be neglected. So it's not a choice for us. So we have to understand where we stand, and we have to take guidance from a senior devotee who can help us in these matters, and not take things in our own hands to decide, okay, this is what we should do, like that. So that is always very dangerous. So that is very important. So we have to take the process of purification and go through the purification. And that helps us to progress further into Krishna consciousness. And also the Bhagavata Dharma, which is the Bhagavata Dharma is above the Varnashram Dharma. So when somebody is in Bhagavata Dharma completely, so as Krishna says that that one who is fully engaged in my consciousness, always thinking about me, and for him, he has no duties to perform. So he is already situated in me. So for him, there's no duties applied. There's no Varnashma duties, the rules applies to him. He is already in the platform of Bhagavata Dharma. That is, such souls are extremely rare. They should have full faith in they should have the blessings of the spiritual master to be able to do that. So these are some little thoughts from this purport that I had. We'll open it for any questions, devotees, comments.
Well, in the Varnashram, that's sort of, like say if you're a Vaishya, there's, even license to not be thoroughly honest sometimes. For you, I make no problem. So, that you're associating with those modes of passion and ignorance then. Or, being a Kshatriya, you have to, have passion, you have to have it. So the purification is how do you purify yourself? If you're in those occupations, how do you purify the negative effects of what's the natural byproduct of being in that occupation?
Yes. So every occupation definitely has an option. For Kshatriyas, for example, they have to maintain dharma. So that is their purification. So even if it means discomfort to them, if you actually have to go to fight with somebody to maintain dharma, or you have to maintain peace in the society by catching the robbers and the others. So he has to take that effort. He cannot sulk from that responsibility. Similarly, a Vaishya also, since he is making a lot of money, earning a lot of money, he should be charitable towards the different other great devotees like brahmacharis and sannyasis and the devotees of Krishna in general. So if he is charitable to them, that's the way he purifies his occupation and his opulences. And Kshatriya, the other Shudras can be engaged in all the services of the devotees and engaged in service of the others, Krishna consciousness movement in different ways. So that is the way they purify their consciousness. So everything has a Krishna conscious outlook. So that was Prabhupada's mission. That doesn't matter where you are, you can still be Krishna conscious. You can still engage in Krishna consciousness. Does it answer your question, Prabhu?
Yeah, that's right.
Any other comments, questions?
I just have a comment that Abhimanyu went out on book distribution yesterday.
Oh.
Yeah.
Went to LSU with,
Again?
yep, again,
With who?
with Parmeshwar. And, the brahmachari that travels around on the
The
bus,
one
he used
here.
to come with
Wanna get that?
Brajeshwar.
Used to do what?
He used to come with
Oh,
Brajananda.
those boys that were here recently?
Yeah. Yeah, they went out. He did 50 books.
What?
Hare Krishna!
What size?
On bond side, all pretty much all different kinds.
Really?
Show us how you did it.
It was just sort of.
What was your mantra?
Well, really, it was so students walk by. Parmeshwar, he recommended compliments, but I only did compliments if they were genuine. So maybe a student walking by
say something like, I assume you're a student judging by your book bag, and they'd be like, yeah, and I say, what are you studying? And they'll tell me what they're studying, and I'm like, oh, and then I was like, hold on, I run to the table as if it's related to what I'm studying, which it is, actually. So I grab a book and then, walking to the table as I'm grabbing the book, and I'm saying, we're actually distributing the original knowledge of meditation yoga. It helps to relieve the problems of stress in life. Have you ever had stress before? And they're like, yeah, I've been stressed. And so then that's when I was like, great, and then I reached for the Gita. I say, Tupac, Einstein, and Will Smith are actually big fans of this book. It's actually a 5,000-year-old book.
Did you say Tupac?
Yeah, Tupac, he read the Gita.
Really?
Yeah. So I have to say it's a 5,000-year-old book. And we actually refer to King Knowledge, and then, I grabbed another book and, explain it a little bit, but then we would just, say that we distribute books on rhythm meditation knowledge, and that we came out a set price, but, that students take as they like, and we just beg a donation. And usually by then you have the books in their hand and they just donate, So that was nice.
Wow.
Fantastic.
Yeah, it's great. It was nice. I was nervous the first day. It took the Walmart was hard. I only got 30 bucks, and then the second day.
30, only did 30 bucks.
No, $30.
Oh,
$30 bucks. Yeah, and then the second day, the first hour, I was just trying to. I kept practicing with Prabhaveshwar because I was so nervous, and then after I got the lines down, I was just like, just going, and I got about like 126 bucks in donations.
Fantastic.
I believe, Prabhuji. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Alright, thank you.
Very nice, Prabhuji.
Thank you all, please bless him that he can distribute all his books.
Oh, that's
Right.
Hallelujah.